One of the players I'm most excited about this season. Key depth for the Texans and guys in a fist fight for their spot. All that and more as the wheel keeps spinning, presented by my friends at DraftKits.co. DraftKits, take your draft to the top level with a customized, beautiful, reusable year after year draft board for my friends at DraftKits. The link in the description down below has all the information, including how you can get a discount on your order. Now, without further ado, the training camp preview rolls on and the wheel spins on. Where do we start today on the wheel? Let's see what it has for us. We begin with a linebacker, key linebacker for the Houston Texans team, E.J. Speed. Now, why did I say key linebacker for the Houston Texans? Well, the depth linebackers that this team had last year are no longer with the team or are buried down the depth chart behind guys like E.J. Speed. Now, Speed played for the Indianapolis Colts. He started for the Colts for a good portion of the past few seasons, and the results were mixed. Lots of tackles. I don't know if the overall play was good enough, and that's why the Colts have moved on despite the high tackle numbers. Now, what exactly does E.J. Speed bring to the table for the Houston Texans? Well, he brings to the table some special teams experience and an athletic guy with a lot of experience playing linebacker should you have to put him into the starting spot. Now, the hope is E.J. Speed doesn't see the field much for the Houston Texans on defense. That would mean that Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'oTo'o and most notably Christian Harris are all healthy players throughout the course of the season, and you don't need to put E.J. Speed on the field a whole bunch for the Houston Texans. But if you have to put E.J. Speed on the field, this is among one of the better backups that you could put out there on the field because he's got a lot of starting experience. There's traits and abilities to him that are useful, and having played a lot of defense, not just being a special teams guy that kind of moonlights on defense, having played a lot of defense, if you have to trust him for a few weeks, a month, a little bit longer than that, hopefully E.J. Speed can pay off for you at a higher level than some of the other backups, or putting a rookie in there, or putting an inexperienced person who has more special teams experience in there. Texans spent a fair amount of money on E.J. Speed too, so they wanted to get him in the building, have him be a factor as a depth piece for this Texans team, and of course, some special teams usefulness for the Texans as well. Linebacker, a big special teams usefulness spot for Frank Ross, the special teams coordinator, and the way the Texans have used their linebackers in the past. They can use those linebackers on the depth chart as special teamers. The wheel spins again. Who do we have joining E.J. Speed in this conversation? How about another special teams player in Tremont Smith? Boy, Frank Ross is really excited to have Tremont Smith back. He talked about Tremont Smith, how good it was to have him back when he joined myself and Landry Locker on the SNL channel earlier this year. If you missed that conversation, be a good refresher for some special teams ahead of training camp getting started in just a few days. But Tremont Smith back on the Houston Texans, where a few years ago he was a special teams ace for this Texans team, went and played a little bit of football elsewhere. He's back, a pretty significant investment for a special teams forward player, but Tremont Smith's also going to be a part of that cornerback depth chart. Now, if Ronald Darby hadn't retired, it might have been pretty easy to leave Tremont Smith out of the conversation, but with the retirement of Ronald Darby, replacing Darby with a player who hasn't played in the NFL in a few years in Damon Arnett, Tremont Smith's right back in the conversation for depth spots on that cornerback position of the depth chart. And you look at some of the performances in minicamp and OTAs where Tremont Smith did play outside cornerback. Nico Collins had a rough rep against him. Tremont Smith got a victory. Nico Collins got some revenge a little bit later on. I don't know exactly where Tremont Smith's going to end up on the depth chart at cornerback. My hope would be that Jalen Smith and a couple of other players play well enough that you don't take a special teams ace and have to put him on defense if you ever need him. And then from a special teams perspective, I mean, my goodness, one of the better and more consistent special teams players when the special teams coordinator is so pumped and excited and ready to rock when it comes to a conversation about Tremont Smith. You know there's some usefulness outside of just your typical, he plays special teams. Okay, there's more to it than that with Tremont Smith. He's a guy that is going to be a key element to how they operate from a special teams perspective, and getting back to an elite level of special teams coverage and things like that from the Houston Texans. Tremont Smith will be a factor in that. The wheel keeps spinning. A couple of special teams aces with some depth chart possibilities, and then a standout. Man, a player that has a lot on his table for a 2025, Kalen Bullock. Yes, it is Bullock. I know most of last year we said Bullock, but Bullock is how he wants it pronounced. He made clear the pronunciation towards the back end of last season. So Kalen Bullock at safety. Oof, what more can you say about the excitement level around this young player? One of the best rookies in the secondary last year across the National Football League. He was a ball hawk from that safety position, and the Texans trusted him a little bit early on in the season, and then boom, he was out there a ton, playing a ton for this Texans team, and he's sort of that center fielder, keeps everything in front of him, and when he starts to see something, man, he goes and gets it. Even had a couple of dropped interceptions to already go along with his impressive interception numbers from last year. But with the way Kamari Lassiter talks about his teammate, Kalen Bullock, he talked about how they both were just trying to make plays. That's all you do in your rookie years. Just go out there and just try to make plays. They understand the positions better. Now, I don't know if that's as useful for Kamari Lassiter. Certainly it's useful for him at cornerback, but understanding safety even better for Kalen Bullock, playing next to a veteran and a very accomplished safety like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Having C.J. Gardner-Johnson praise Bullock recently when he was on a podcast to get you kind of excited for what Kalen Bullock can bring to the table at that safety position. Can he come up and thump somebody and be a huge help in the run game? No, he probably can't on a consistent basis. He'll make a play here and there in the run game, but he's not coming up and filling the gap. But that's why you have that front seven that you do have. You have the big, nasty defensive line. At the linebackers, you got Jalen Petrie hovering around the line of scrimmage. So the guys like Bullock don't have to go up there and make that play, and they can sit back and watch things happen. Go out there and make a play. Go out there and rip the ball out of the air when somebody challenges that Texans secondary. I mean, I'm really excited to see how much growth there is from Kalen Bullock and how the Texans can maybe use him more as he maybe understands the defense at a deeper level. If this front seven does what they're supposed to do, it's going to be pretty easy for this secondary to go out there and be successful, and it's going to be very easy for Kalen Bullock to be in the right place at the right time to get some more of those interceptions. He was already an impressive interception guy in 2024. He should add to that total in 2025 with some of the possibilities that this defense presents. I guess my only really worry about Bullock is post-traumatic Petrie disorder, where Jalen Petrie was pretty good as a rookie safety. Then the second year, the NFL kind of caught on to how he operated and they were ready for it. I suppose there's a little bit of that. Just, I don't want to get burned again. Don't get fooled again. You know how the old song goes. I think that's The Who. Don't get fooled again from that standpoint. And I just wonder if maybe there's a time or two where the ball hawking got a little bit more, and sometimes you just live and let die with that. You have the success as a ball hawk because you have some of the risks that don't turn out. The risk that doesn't turn out, Ladd McConkey in the playoffs, he gave the Chargers a little bit of life with his big, long touchdown. That was in large part because Kalen Bullock went for the interception, didn't get there, didn't complete the risky moment. But I think he'll live with most of the risks because he pays them off, Bullock does. He pays them off in a pretty dramatic fashion and finding a way to go out there and make a play and make a statement as a defender for this Texans team. You want to make yourself a member of the Google form in the description down below so that you can win some fantastic prizes. It's Houston Football Appreciation Week, from restaurant gift cards to a J.J. Watt bobblehead set to some sports cards. I wanted to show you some of the stuff that you could win. How about an Andre Johnson J.J. Watt rookie card? How about a different J.J. Watt card? This is like a fancy card. It's numbered. So that's a cool one. I got some C.J. Stroud rookie card stuff for you. None of this stuff's like, some sort of just like amazing $1 million card. But, if you're a card person, maybe you'll end up with some of these. CJ, and then you got a Will Anderson, Bryce Young rookie card thing. So there's some cool sports cards here as part of the giveaways as well. And again, you got to enter in the Google form in the description down below. All the rules are there. We'll spin the wheel here in the next couple of days after the Google form closes, and you have a chance to win some of those things. That's some other cool stuff that we're going to announce before the form sign up is closed. So you don't want to miss out on your chance to have just something free as an appreciation, as a thank you from me here ahead of training camp getting started. Let's spin the wheel again. See who joins Bullock and some special teamers. How about Darrell Taylor? Darrell Taylor, defensive end for this Houston Texans team. And Darrell Taylor is an intriguing player because this is the type of player that the Houston Texans in DeMeco Ryans' tenure of, hey, spend a little bit of money on Darrell Taylor, and the next thing you know, Darrell Taylor becomes a key depth piece for your team. That's the type of vein, the type of player that Darrell Taylor can be. He's played on a couple of different teams in his NFL career. First started in Seattle, then was in Chicago last year, and over 4 seasons, 24 and a half sacks, including a 2022 season where he rattled off 9.5 sacks. Now, unlocking the potential of Darrell Taylor will be important for this Texans team. That's what they're going to have to do. And what exactly he brings to the table, well, he's a depth piece because he's not starting over Will Anderson or Danielle Hunter. And I'd probably slot him comfortably behind Derek Barnett in the defensive end rotation. But we know the Houston Texans like those defensive line hockey changes. They like to go 4 in, 4 out sometimes. They certainly go 2 in, 2 out with the defensive end. So Darrell Taylor is going to have an opportunity to carve out a role as a depth piece at defensive end. And with the somewhat modest investment and the somewhat modest performance in his NFL career, DeMeco Ryans and this defensive coaching staff get a hold of him and start to really mold things and kind of get him into a situation where they like his potential and he showcases a little bit more. Still a pretty young player, only played 4 seasons in the NFL. There could be something there where Darrell Taylor is, 4th, 5th on the defensive end depth chart this year. Then maybe he's number 3 on the defensive end depth chart because they decide to bring him back next year. Like, there's some long-term potential, and then there's some just performance potential here in 2025. Because if there's something that DeMeco Ryan sees in a defensive lineman, specifically a defensive end, I'm going to believe that you can go out there and continue to unlock some of the positives from Darrell Taylor's game. Not quite sure exactly yet how he could affect the run game or if he affects the run game. So that's something to pay attention to in training camp when he gets those opportunities. But it won't be easy for Darrell Taylor to make the roster. I mean, just because you have a nice contract doesn't guarantee you a roster spot. But Derek Barnett, Dylan Horton, Darrell Taylor as 3 defensive end backups for this Texans team behind Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, that certainly looks like the makings of a defensive end room that you can live with and a defensive end room that you can go out there and wreak some havoc on some opposing offenses as well. So I'd like Darrell Taylor to make this roster and be a factor as a depth piece and maybe sprinkle in a couple of sacks here and there. Let's see what the wheel has for us next. Who joins Darrell Taylor in the conversation? One of my favorites, Jaden Higgins, the top draft pick for this Houston Texans team and a key element of the Houston Texans offense in 2025. Coming into 2024, we thought the Texans were going to be squared away and set at wide receiver at the end of the season. We realized that wide receiver room needed a makeover. The Texans realized it as well, and Higgins is one of the key elements of that makeover. I loved what I saw from him at the Senior Bowl in this draft process, impressed at the NFL scouting combine, and that's just the draft stuff. He was excellent at Iowa State. He was a playmaker, dynamic for them, a red zone weapon, didn't miss games for the Cyclones either, and all of that combined with his athletic profile and size, it puts him on the Houston Texans with a chance to very much affect the Texans 2025 season. And if he affects it to a large enough degree, he can affect the NFL. Because think about this. If Jaden Higgins is as good as he can be, like maybe, I don't know, close to 1,000 yards and a few touchdowns, that affects the landscape of the AFC and the NFL because that means the Texans are a little bit better. That means that maybe they're changing the things in the AFC. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. All right, I just to get excited about Jaden Higgins. I really liked him in this wide receiver class. I liked him than a couple of the guys that got drafted in the first round. I liked him more than those guys. I liked him more than Matthew Golden, the guy the Green Bay Packers drafted. I liked him more than Tetaroa McMillan, who the Carolina Panthers drafted in the top 10. I like Jaden Higgins more than those guys. Now, did I like Emeka Egbuka about the same? And did I like Travis Hunter more? Sure, but that's a whole other conversation. Higgins, big, tall, athlete, trusty hands, reliable because he doesn't miss time with injury, and he can win from the inside and the outside. The thing that's always stuck with me, of course, over the course of the offseason was he wants to be a red zone weapon. He's talked about that a couple of different times throughout the conversations of leading up to getting drafted and then ultimately being a part of the Houston Texans. Is he wants to be a red zone weapon. And the Texans were putrid in the red zone last year. How many times did things get into the red zone and the next thing you know, Kaimi Fairbairn's walking out there to kick the football because they couldn't get something done in the red zone? He's a big target with lots of body control. Seen it a little bit in the OTAs, the mini camp. You throw the thing up into the back corner of the end zone. He gets the feet down on the toe tap. Really excited to watch him in training camp. What does he have to do in training camp? Well, he has to find exactly how he fits with Nico Collins, with Christian Kirk, how he fits in the offense. Nick Caley's got to figure out what they can do with him that's unique and different and special with him. And there's maybe a little bit of a concern with how he's going to handle defensive backs that get physical with him at the line of scrimmage, but the Texans can limit that with some of the motion that perhaps he would be a part of, and just not having him right there on the line of scrimmage so that he gets that easier release to go out there and make some plays. He can win over the middle. He can win down the sideline. He can win deep with his size and athleticism. There's so much to like about Jaden Higgins. I'm so excited to watch him in 2025 with this Texans team. There's a lot to like about the potential for this player. The Texans loved him enough to make him the top draft pick. I believe this is the player Nick Caserio hinted that he would have considered drafting at 25 if they hadn't traded back. Ultimately, they did. The Browns are silly. They take a linebacker at the top of the second round, and then Jaden Higgins, right into the lap of the Houston Texans. Good selection in the draft, and really excited about the potential for Higgins here in 2025. You can't tell me I'm pumped. I'm excited about Jaden Higgins. Who joins him in the conversation? Tommy Togiai. Tommy Togiai is a player that the Texans added along the defensive line in the middle part of last year. Togiai was a waiver claim. The Texans snagged him, had him in the defensive line conversation down the stretch. He had a sack in the playoffs against the Kansas City Chiefs, 1.5 sacks in the regular season, in about the middle portion on from when the Texans got him. But by the end of the year, he was playing over a healthy Kurt Hinish. Kurt Hinish was a healthy scratch, and Tommy Togiai was playing over him. And I felt like Togiai had some really nice moments from a run-stopping standpoint, from a pass rush standpoint, from a diagnosing plays and going and making plays, using his athleticism to get side to side. This is a former highly touted recruit, went to Ohio State, had some success there. And then, it hasn't been as seamless and easy in the NFL for him as maybe some of the success early on in his football career, but he found a nice little niche role for the Houston Texans, and I wonder if that role can grow a little bit heading into 2025. Can he do well enough along the defensive line to carve out a spot for himself in this defensive tackle room that is going to be competitive, that's filled with a bunch of different veterans? And if he does carve out a spot on the 53-man roster, how much playing time can he go out there and get? Again, I felt like he was pretty impressive, and that was showing up in the middle of the year to figure out whatever you can do, just do what you can now. An offseason with the Texans, working out. They put the investment into him. He knows now the defense, what's expected of him. He's had an offseason to kind of get deeper into the defense. Perhaps there's a little bit more to what Tommy Togiai was able to bring to the table in 2024. If he does that in 2025, he'll be on the roster. If not, that very competitive defensive tackle spot, his spot may go to someone else, but solid depth player for the Texans as well. All right, I want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about my friends at DrafKits. DrafKits.co is the website. Get you a custom homemade draft board for your home draft. Put a fun, hilarious picture on the back. Have that draft board to reuse year after year after year. Use those incredible stickers that DraftKits has to stick your pick at your home draft. Take your home draft to the top level. It's not the next level, to the top level with DraftKits.co. Texas company, Houston Texans fan runs it. You get 10% off. Use my code Cody, CODY, 1.25 when you check out. They've got the 1-year only draft boards, the non-reusable ones, but I love that reusable one. Get you a fantastic customized beautiful draft board that your draft and your league is going to use year after year after year. It is unmatched, the quality that DrafKits brings to the table. Check them out. Use the code, get a discount, and take that draft to the top level. Let's see what the wheel has for us here. Come on, wheel. Spin. And Austin Deculus, a backup, a depth piece along that offensive line. Deculus, of course, started his NFL career with the Houston Texans. He went elsewhere. He's back and started at left tackle at one point when Laramie Tunsil was hurt in 2023. I believe that was against the Pittsburgh Steelers, that first year of the DeMeco Ryan, C.J. Stroud era. But Deculus is a depth piece for this Texans team, and he's sort of on the bubble if you sort of think about where the offensive line situation's shaking out. Cam Robinson and Ariante Ursary and Blake Fisher feel like they're for sure on this team, and there's a couple of contenders for Deculus' spot, which would be Zach Thomas, who is a player the Texans claimed off of waivers last year, and Trent Brown, a free agent and experienced football player that they signed in free agency. Modest investment in Trent Brown, and he's coming off of an injury, but Deculus would have to beat out Thomas and Brown to find himself on the roster. And I'm not even sure the Texans are for sure going to keep 4 tackles. If they do, perhaps somebody who's played a little bit more for the Texans at right tackle like Thomas, or had a little bit more experience in this building at right tackle for the Texans than Thomas. But the Texans did bring back Deculus at the end of last year as a depth piece along the offensive line, gave him a multi-year investment in bringing him back. So he'll have a chance. And if competition is the word, if that's the buzzword for the offensive line conversation, he's got an opportunity to play himself into a spot on this team and into the conversation for this Texans team. If it is truly open competition, 5 best guys, then Austin Deculus could maybe find his way onto this roster. If not, perhaps he's a practice squad consideration, though I do wonder if another team would grab him as a depth piece if he didn't make the Houston Texans. But he's likely a depth piece if he makes the team. Does he make the team? Well, that's why you have training camp for guys like Deculus to scratch and claw and find themselves with a roster spot to speak of. One more spin of the wheel. See who joins this crew in this conversation about the Houston Texans. Speaking of scratching and clawing for a spot along the offensive line, that's exactly what Juice Scruggs is going to do this season. Scruggs has been a disappointment, from a second-round pick to a player that has not locked down and solidified the center spot for the Houston Texans. He didn't even play center his rookie year. He was going to be the starting center. He got hurt. He came back. He played guard. It was fine. He was going to be the starting center last year. He played center. It was okay to bad most of the time. And then he played a little bit of left guard. He played a little bit of right guard. He got hurt again. It just hasn't been consistent. It hasn't been a steadying force like you would have expected when the Texans spent a second-round draft pick on him to play center. The hope was you spend the second-round pick, he plays center, he's your center for the next few years, and that just hasn't been the case. And now he's in a fight for the starting center spot with Jared Patterson, who was drafted the same year as him and has outplayed him at the center position, and Jake Andrews, who the Houston Texans claimed off of waivers this past offseason and are giving an opportunity to make the team and to be the starting center for the Houston Texans. And Andrews and Patterson both snapped the ball at center before Juice Scruggs snapped the ball at center in OTAs and minicamp. So that is notable. It's perhaps where things begin when training camp gets going for Juice Scruggs. Is he's got a long road to beat those guys out. But Scruggs is going to be a factor at the guard position as well. Having played guard and having maybe a solution to the backup center spot, the Texans should give him a crack at guard. And it's not going to be easy to find himself with an opportunity at guard. Laken Tomlinson at left guard has played a tremendous amount of football. He's had better results at guard than Scruggs at right guard. Titus Howard looks like he's getting the first crack at that right guard position, but Scruggs maybe could supplant him, displace him at right guard. Maybe he's the starting right guard. And even from a conversation about a backup standpoint, do you want a guy who primarily should be a center that is now a backup guard and a third backup center? If you have Jared Patterson as the backup center, do you also keep Juice Scruggs? It becomes very difficult to see how Scruggs can guarantee himself a roster spot if some other guys outperform him. So he's going to have to really really outperform a few of his teammates to find himself not only an opportunity to start, but a way to make this 53-man roster. If competition is the name of the game, he should have the opportunities, both at center and guard, to find himself a potential starting spot, and if not, a backup spot. But I wouldn't be really confident in telling you that Juice Scruggs going to be on the 53-man roster for this Houston Texans team, despite just a couple of years into his NFL career and as a former second-round pick. He just hasn't played well enough to have that confidence that he's for sure going to be on the 53-man roster. Yes, the position versatility helps him, but it's not a unique advantage to him. It feels like everybody that's competing for that center and guard spots on the team for the Texans has some sort of position versatility. So not a unique inherent advantage for him. That sort of works against him in the conversation because he may have to split his time trying to win a spot at the center position, trying to win a spot at the guard position. I don't envy Cole Popovich, the offensive line coach, and Nick Haley, the offensive coordinator, trying to figure out who plays where and when and with who and what conglomeration and combination works best for protecting C.J. Stroud. All I know is they got to get it right. You got to get your draft right with DrafKits.co. Check them out. Get the discount. Put the link in the description down below with them. You've got to get yourself signed up for the raffle. So fill out the Google form and follow the rules to the entry in the link in the description down below. And you got to get in the comment section. If you agree or disagree with me on any of these things, let me know in the comment section down below. On your way down there, thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.